What is going on, everyone, and welcome back to the Sports Talk on Tap podcast. We're here. You can find daily videos covering mainly the NFL and NBA, but with the NFL season less than a week away now, we had some college football going on last night and some big games coming up this weekend. Goes without saying, it's a lot of NFL talk, but we'll also sprinkle in some NBA talk, start previewing what the season looks like. But last night, for anyone that hasn't already, make sure to watch my NFC and just playoff predictions as a whole. And unfortunately, I got some bad news as a Vikings fan last night. I'm looking to go for a walk, and then as soon as I go for the walk, I get an ESPN notification, and it is the Packers getting Micah Parsons. I love Micah Parsons. I think in like a year or two, he's going to be the best defensive player in the league. He's already arguably top three. I mean, just what he's done since going to the Dallas Cowboys in 2021, at least like 12 sacks a season. A lot of pressures, can get those forced fumbles, and he's just a game wrecker. Oh, that's what he is. One of the most feared pass rushers in this league. And unfortunately, I thought Dallas would come through and eventually pay for him. I did see the Packers reports early in the week, but it's kind of hard to believe what you see until it actually comes true. And then it does come true. And as a Vikings fan, I'm nervous because I think this is the kind of move that puts the Packers over the Vikings, even though I'm a Vikings fan. Unfortunately, Micah Parsons is just so good, and this Packers team is already good. They won 11 games. I had them around 10 wins, just barely missing the playoffs because some question marks on the defense, mainly with their pass rush, and that is solved. And they had to give up 2 first-round picks and Kenny Clark, who had a down season. I was expecting a little bit of a bounce back. But when you get Micah Parsons, it's completely worth it. A trade for the Packers. They signed him to the extension, too. Already lock him up, making him the non-highest paid quarterback in league history, which is what it's called for, what I would have given him. And if I'm a Packers fan, I'm lit because you had Xavier McKinney come over, really break out. You still have Rashawn Gary that can have a bounce back year, and just playing alongside Micah Parsons will make him better. Jordan Love entering year 3. You get Matthew Golden to help boost this offense. This seems scary, and this is the kind of move that I think jumps the Vikings and maybe the Lions, because that's how good of a player Micah Parsons is. And you can't overreact. It's a good move for the Packers, and I think this kind of will ultimately make them tier 1 contenders in the NFC race with the Eagles, and I think put them right there to go to the Super Bowl as long as Jordan Love can play consistently, and injuries, of course, to come into play, because the pass rush is one of the weaker spots for the Green Bay team, and this helps fix a lot of that when you get a player Micah Parsons' talent. And then looking at the Cowboys side, you got the 2 first-round picks. Jerry Jones say they might use for, I don't know, a player before the season, or maybe mid-season. I mean, I kind of find it hard. They're less than a week from their game against Philadelphia, and you got Kenny Clark, a good player, but when you give up Micah Parsons, it's kind of a tough pill to swallow. And for Cowboys fans, I'm just sorry. This is a really dumb move. You gave away one of the top 3 defensive players in the league that was just entering his prime. So may have his best years with the Packers, as good as he was on Dallas. Just getting adapted as a rookie, fit right in, led them to the playoffs pretty much every single year besides last year, but last year still had a great year. Bad the offense was, and it just stinks for Dallas to lose someone like this. It shows Jerry Jones's incompetence. He waited so long to pay CD and Dak, which made the offense go off to a rough start last year. And I thought they were just playing games with Micah, but they really said for him to walk if he didn't want to play in the 5th year. And you just don't do that with your players. And Dallas knows Jerry Jones is living in the 90s. It's not the fans' fault, not the organization's fault. No one's fault but Jerry Jones. Brian Schottenheimer, I feel bad for because, he definitely wanted Micah Parsons on this team. And when you just give up someone like this for really no reason, I know he requested a trade, but he just wanted to get paid and felt respected in Dallas. Jerry Jones wasn't doing that. But credit to the Packers for capitalizing on this move. I mean, A-plus move. Can't state that enough. And, for the Cowboys, those first-round picks may turn out to be great. Kenny Clark can be, a very good D-tackle on this team, but it's not a Micah Parsons game changer, which can't be said enough. And, like I said, I think the Packers now are right there with the Eagles, because they're one of the most complete teams, top 10 in EPA for offense and defense last year, despite some of the holes they had. And this can help them. He's a game changer, can help beat those close teams where last year they lost 2 close games to the Vikings. They lost some close games to the Lions, to the Eagles. Now, this is the move where he can get another fumble or just a big sack that can help change the game. So overall, just credit to the Packers for what they did, because and Matt LaFleur in this front office being aggressive and just not want to play around. Jerry Jones obviously meant it when he said he wasn't going to be playing around, and he wasn't. I mean, he was going to have Micah play on that 5th year, trade him, and he's traded. So, we'll see. I'm already honestly scared for JJ McCarthy as a Vikings fan, and I know the whole NFC North is as well. Caleb Williams, Ben Johnson, that's another thing they have to deal with. Same with Detroit in their new scheme. So with that being said, though, let me know your thoughts on the trade. Who do you think won? Obviously, probably the Packers. But if you're a Cowboys fan, Packers fan, how you feeling about Micah Parsons leaving or joining your team? But with that being said, we also had some college football. My Gophers were able to win. My guy Drake Lindsay was slinging the ball pretty well. That Buffalo defense stood tall for a while, but thankfully he was able to punch the game away. And then Boise State, number 25 Boise State, their first game without Ashton Jeanty went way off the rails. A lot of fumbles. I think 4 fumbles, only 2 were lost, but it was just a sloppy game from Boise coming off the great season they had last year, again, the bye, second round of the playoffs, and now getting destroyed by USF. And I think, USF played really well. They got some big plays down the field. That offense was humming. Obviously, 34-7 wasn't really even close. I thought Boise State maybe we could come back, but nope, was never the case. And then some other games, Dylan Royal and Nebraska sneak a close one over Cincinnati. Dylan Royal hoping to build off a pretty good freshman season, kind of slumped towards the end, had some high highs and some low lows, but pretty good game for him yesterday. Took care of the ball, threw a couple touchdowns. But then tonight, we obviously got Colorado, Coach Prime, first game without Travis Hunter, Shador Sanders and crew. And then obviously we have, Baylor, Auburn should be a good one. Excited to see that tomorrow. That will be on Monday. Number 1 Texas at the defending champs, number 3 Ohio State. Can't wait to see that. So college football's here. Can't wait to see all the ranked teams. Oregon take the field, and we'll make sure to if any surprise upsets happen in week 1. Alabama, FSU with Tommy Castellano should be interesting. So I'll be there watching a lot. But with that being said, we'll also talk some some NBA today. We're going to be previewing kind of what the season comes up for, what each team has in store. And today we're going to start with the Eastern Conference. I want to split it up. So we have 5 tiers, championship caliber, a solid playoff team, a play-in team, decent, might just miss the playoffs, okay, and then just trash, team that probably doesn't have much high expectations. But like I said, we'll start in the Eastern Conference. And with that being said, our first team up in the Eastern Conference is the Atlanta Hawks. And I think the Atlanta Hawks are a solid playoff team this year. The additions they made, Trae Young had a great season last year, not great efficiency-wise, but his best playmaking season. Arguably, they brought in some depth guys. You have Dyson Daniels, Jalen Johnson coming back fully healthy. Nickeil Alexander-Walker, my guy from the Timberwolves. Overall, this Atlanta team made some good moves. I like their draft picks. I think Atlanta is going to be a solid playoff team, and I think they're just going to take advantage of some of the injured teams in the league this year, especially in the Eastern Conference, and just kind of a weak Eastern Conference as a whole. And then with that being said, our next team up, the Brooklyn Nets. It's still rebuilding time in Brooklyn. Obviously, you have Cam Thomas that can go out and ball. They still have Nick Claxton, even though I thought he'd get traded. But this team, after the Mikal Bridges, it's full rebuild. I really don't think they have the tools to compete really anytime soon. Then next up, the Miami Heat. I think they'll be decent playing. It's kind of tough. I think some teams might jump them, so I'm going to put them just outside. I think with the Miami Heat, they, that great run with Jimmy Butler, it ended sour. They still have some guys like Andrew Wiggins, Tyler Hero, but that Cavs series, and Eric Spoelstra is still the best coach in the NBA, in my opinion. But it really showed in that playoff series against the Cavs, where it was one of the most historically dominant playoff series. Even though it's a 1-8, you typically don't expect the 8 seed to win. But the Miami Heat have won some 8 seed matchups versus the one with Jimmy Butler. they're just kind of be decent. There might be borderline late playing, but I just see them ultimately missing the playoffs and not getting that 7-8 spot. So I'll put them, outside around the 9 to 11 seed, which is where I'll have decent. The playing teams will be like the last two teams I have making the playoffs. And with that being said, the around my 7 seed spot will be the Boston Celtics and one of my playing teams. I think they will get in ultimately, but this is just a retooling year. You trade away Drew Holiday, you trade away Kristaps. This team, Jason Tatum's out for the year. It's more so just, a Jaylen Brown, Derek White show. I think they'll be decent. They still got some players. Sam Hauser that, can put up some points. Payne Pritchard obviously will be a starter this year. They'll still be decent. I think they'll be, around the 7th seed this year, but they're going to take a dramatic step back just with the Tatum injury. And I don't disagree with the Porzingis holiday trades. You had to get rid of their contracts just to get out of the second apron with how hard those are. But with that being said, still a lot of question marks. Just going to be kind of a down year. I think around probably 45, 46 wins is realistic for them. With that being said, the Washington Wizards, I'm going to put in. I think they'll be better than that, but still, there's a lot of what ifs after they trade away Denny Evia. A lot of it rides on. They trade away Jordan Poole, who was actually pretty solid for them last year, but Bub Carrington, can he take another step? Keyshawn George, because there's Keontae George on dead. Keyshawn George, kind of what do those 3 first rounders from next year give you? Alex Sarr, obviously a big question mark. If they look to improve and get some youth, but for now, I still have them bottom of the barrel. They have to prove it to me before they ultimately do anything. Then the next Eastern Conference team up, the Orlando Magic, and the Orlando Magic for me, solid playoff team. When Franz Wagner is there, Paolo Banchero, they were one of the best defensive teams last year. Obviously, that KCP sign did not work out. They got rid of him. They brought in Desmond Bane, who's an elite shooting guard that can help fix this offense. I like what the Magic did. I see around a top, I think probably a 4 seed in their sights if Banchero, Wagner, Bane are fully healthy for most of the season, can give you 70-plus games. This team's going to be really good. And if just some of the shooting can improve, Jalen Suggs comes back fully healthy and returns to a year ago where he was a great shooter and gives you that elite defense, this Magic team is going to be very good. And they'll always be good defensively despite KCP's departure. So shout out the Magic. Love what they did. Excited to see them. Next up, the Indiana Pacers. This one's tough. I think with them, I have to give them the Celtics treatment as well. Tyrese Halliburton's out for the year. You lose Miles Turner in free agency. You still have Pascal Siakam, still have Benedict Mathurin, TJ McConnell, some good bench pieces. I have them, in that low play and maybe a 6 seed, but they're similar to Celtics where they lose their star for the year. Torn Achilles just sucks in sports, but they also lose Miles Turner, who was a key piece to their run. So I think it's just going to be kind of a retool year, low playoff team, 6 to 8 seed I have for them in my sights because they still got some players where this will be competent. With that, the Cavaliers, I think the Cavaliers, it's tough with me for them. I'll put them in championship. 1 seed last year, 64 wins. They were returning most of their guys. Darius Garland had a great year. Donovan Mitchell, Evan Mobley, one Depoy. Jared Allen. I just don't love them in the playoffs because they've proven they can't show up in the biggest moments. But in a weak Eastern Conference, I have to give them that respect. Obviously, they lost some really close games to Indiana, so maybe if some luck bounces in their favor, they still got some decent depth despite losing guys like Ty Jerome. I like them. But with that being said, I also like the team that made the ECF last year. The Knicks, I think I'd put them ahead of the Cavs right now. They're one of my favorites to come out of the East. I mean, you got Jalen Brunson, Josh Hart, OG Anunoby, Mikal Bridges, Karl Anthony Towns. This offensive lineup is the defense does have some question mark and the depths, but you bring in Mike Brown, who's a good coach, even though I didn't love the Tom Thibodeau firing. There's made some minor tweaks. I think, though, overall, they're a great team. They're going to be one of the best offenses. They took Indiana 6 games. They had home court. I think this year with Indiana injured, Boston injured, don't really have to worry about them quite as much because no one gave them a chance in that Celtics series. And they pulled off some miraculous wins to win that series. Shout out the Knicks. For now, they're my favorites, mainly because I'm also a Karl Anthony Towns guy, but I also love me some Jalen Brunson. So clutch when you need him to be. The Chicago Bulls, I think, will be decent. They got some players. They got rid of Vucevic, but you have Kobe White, Josh Giddey showed some actual good progress last year, which was kind of surprising. Metellus, Buzelis, they'll be decent, kind of like the Miami Heat. So got some players, but non-threatening, always kind of low playing seed, play-in elimination. So I don't see them making the playoffs. With that being said, the 76ers, they're going to be they had an awful year last year. Jeremy McCain showed some hype. I'm going to put them in a tier above the Bulls in Heat. I think when they're fully healthy, Tyrese Maxey, Jaron McCain, what he did last year in his short time as rookie was amazing. Paul George can't have as bad of a year as he did, but if they could try and trade him, that'd be interesting. But with that being said, I could see a big bounce back year. Joel Embiid's health is obviously the biggest question mark. Will he even play? That remains to be seen, but obviously when he plays, he's one of the best centers in the league. Best offensive centers we've ever seen. So we'll definitely be interested to see what they can do with them. But, overall, health is just a big question mark. If Paul George is playing, can he play good and will he be healthy? Because that's also been another thing with him is just health. But, still excited to see what they can do. And then next team up, the Detroit Pistons. What a year they had last year. I'm hoping they continue to build off of that, which is why I'm predicting Cunningham, Jalen Duren. They're all going to continue to get better. Asar Thompson, his offense. Obviously, they lose Malik Beasley, who was one of their best shooters last year. Off the court issues he has to deal with the gambling and stuff. But overall, love what Detroit did. Excited to see them, take another step just because they got some dogs on that team. And then next up, the Toronto Raptors. I'll put in low decent. They got some players too, like RJ. Oh no, I'll put them in decent. They're pretty. I think they got some players. Grady Dick, RJ Barrett, Emmanuel Quickly. They just got. I don't think they're really much of a threat. They've kind of they tried, I think, to be aggressive for Giannis, which would have been awesome. But they just got a bunch of young players that they can continue to develop. Maybe they could sneak into the play-in, but for now, just decent. Next up, the Milwaukee Bucks. I think the floor with Giannis is always going to be a playoff team. You add Miles Turner, so his front court got better. But obviously, Dame's out for the year. Went to Portland in the trade, which I'd love for him, just returning home. The fit just never worked. They re-signed Gary Trent. Obviously, the depth. They have some shooters like AJ Green, but the depth is really small. As we saw in the playoffs last year, they just couldn't clutch up games against Indiana. And they just couldn't keep up with their depth when it came down to the benches. Giannis was doing everything he could, but he didn't have this point caster around him. The Miles Turner was an interesting, good signing for him. So I think their front court will be good, and I think there will be a safe playoff team with a fully healthy Giannis. But a Giannis injury away, they could be in the trash category. And then last team up from the East, the Hornets. I'm going to throw them in. I don't think they're as bad as the two teams below. I think decent if they're fully healthy. LaMelo Ball was very, when he's on the court, he's very solid. One of the better players in this league, young players. But unfortunately, the story with his career is he's just never been healthy. Brandon Miller was also very, roughed up last year. But if he comes back and, replicates, builds off his rookie season from 2 years ago, that could be great. They draft Concanipple, one of the best shooters coming out of the draft. Ryan Cockburner, one of my favorite centers coming out, big crane guy. So like that. So they got some young players. I think they can be, okay. But with that being said, still a lot riding on non-injuries and just kind of, get these young players stepping up. But with that being said, let me know what you agree, disagree with in my tier list. Championship, playoff, did I underrate, overrate a team? Always excited to get your thoughts because basketball, believe it or not, we have the NFL coming up in less than a week. We have the NBA coming up, training camp starting up in a couple of weeks. So it's very much around the corner, despite feeling like it just ended. But let me know your thoughts, once again, where your favorite team lies, how excited you are, what's your prediction for your team this upcoming season, because that's always fun. But as always, make sure to like and subscribe if you enjoy this kind of content. We'll catch you in the next one. Peace.